Right, so I'm the green architect, and just to say, the evening's being run by Open Eco Homes, which is a project of the charity Cambridge Carbon Footprint. Sorry, I'm not advancing. There we go. Okay, so we're going to cover a range of topics: shading and thermal mass, and then you can see the others. We have a question and answer, ventilation, another poll, avoiding accidental overheating, and personal cooling. So I'm going to start with shading. I need to review a couple of basics, and forgive me if this is all very familiar, but we want to make sure everybody is with us. These will help when we're looking at different house types as well, and different situations. So we're looking at materials absorbing heat and thermal mass, and we also need to look at seasonal and daily sun on your house. Oops. So first of all, dense materials, that is concrete, brick, and stone, absorb more heat and solar radiation, and they release it slowly. We say they have greater thermal mass. And for example, metals absorb and release heat very quickly, so that they would be conductors instead. Insulation and timber generally absorb less heat, so we say they have less thermal mass. Glass, even though it's a heavy material, it transmits heat, whether it's single, double, or triple glazing. And surfaces can reflect heat, so that might be a light roofing material, foil, or solar film on glass. Assume your house or room in your house is cool on the morning of a heat wave. How does that heat wave heat get in to warm up your house? Windows are a likely route, but how? If the window's closed, as we said, the sun still shines in through it, as in the diagram on the left. If this direct sunlight gets through the glazing, it will shine on and be absorbed by any surface it reaches, as you can see in the left-hand photo. Patches of sunlight on the chair, on the floor, on the cushions. This surface will then radiate back the absorbed heat into the interior of your house, and it will do that long after the sun has moved around and the window is in shade. On the right is the same room with the Venetian blinds blocking the sun path, and all the patches of sun have disappeared. So for me, rule number one is, in a heat wave, we want to block the direct sun. So, note that, all right, if early sun is absorbed on the surfaces in the morning, this could cause the surfaces to radiate back that heat inside the house all day long. So it's especially important to shade the morning sun, and that means even at 4:30 in the morning these days. So this means you'll probably need to draw the shades in anticipation the night before. However, let's consider my personal criteria for summer cooling. It's not just that we want to block the direct sun. In my opinion, we also want two further things: to still have daylight in the room, because after all, that's why you have a window, and still to see the view outside if possible. By the way, if it's cool outside, but it's getting hot, and you know it's getting hot, let's suppose the window's open to cool the house down. Is this the best thing to do? Tom's going to talk more about that later. Okay, so we need to review a bit more before we look at some more examples. To stay cool, you need to know which parts of your home receive sun or light and when. And by that, I mean which part of the day and which season. So here's a diagram. There's the building in the center. North exposure is shady. Sun comes up in the east in the morning, sets in the west in the afternoon, and the south is sunny. In the winter, the sun path is low. It starts in the southeast, it moves to the southwest at a low angle. That's the orange curve. In the summer, it's high. It moves from the northeast to the northwest at a high angle, and that's the red curve. Clearly, it's important if you want to keep out direct sunlight, you need to know which windows you will need to shade in the morning, afternoon, and before bed. The other thing, in effect, cooling that is low tech like this requires developing a heat wave routine. The other thing that's useful to know is the outdoor temperature, or at least whether it's cooler out than in. This is important for natural ventilation, as we will see. You do not want to be accidentally sucking the hot outside air into your house during a heat wave. Internal shading. The simplest way to shade something is something like roller blades or curtain fabric over the window. But these don't really fulfill my criteria. I want to be able to get the light in, and I want to see the view outside. An alternative would be blinds. Vertical blinds with slats let some light in, and they can allow some view out. Horizontal Venetian blinds can be angled to deflect the sun, but bring plenty of light into the room and permit a reasonable view out. Here's an illustration of how horizontal blinds can affect direct sunlight. Sun in Cambridge comes in at a maximum of 61 degrees in the summer, and by the way, it goes down to 14 degrees in the winter. Horizontal blind blades allow you to maximize or block the sun. So on the left, the blinds are letting in all the sun, and this could be happening at 4:30 in the morning. When you think the blinds are closed, they could be heating up your floor. In the middle, blinds are horizontal. They keep the view, there's my eye looking out, and reflect some light onto the ceiling. On the right, the blinds are angled to block the sun completely, but they reflect some onto the ceiling, and they still retain some view out. With blinds, however, there are a fair number of moving parts, and these have to be maintained and cleaned. And the blades themselves heat up in the sunshine, and because they're inside, they transmit that heat into the room. We've now got a little video to show you, giving an alternative way of shading. I'll stop sharing, Tom.
Okay, it's better if Chris can show this, I think.
I'll now
Okay.
try and
I'll stop sharing. Okay.
My office faces south, so when it's forecast to be hot, I like to put up an awning that I made in 2010 to shade the window. I lean out and hook some elastic loops at the top over hooks on the wall. Then 2 lengths of tube hold it out the bottom edge. I tension it all up with guy ropes attached to more hooks screwed into the outside wall at the bottom. It works very well, and the shade keeps the room cool. We have a larger awning downstairs, and this one is held out with guys to the garden fence.
So let's keep looking at other types of external shading. The great advantage here is that the sun is blocked before it can heat up the windows or anything inside, unlike internal blinds. So here on the top row, we have wooden slats on a new house, and this is by AC Architects, intercepting the sun at high summer angles, keeping the window glass cool, but maintaining a view out. These slats are also sometimes known as brise soleil, or in French, something that breaks the sun. On the bottom row are shutters, And there are 2 points to make about shutters. They can provide complete blockage of the sun and ventilation through the louvers in a secure and sometimes elegant way. Some shutters even have adjustable louvers for different sun angles. But 2, shutters are very common in many countries, but they do require the windows to open inwards. In the UK, inward opening windows are rare. For whatever reason, shutters are expensive in this country. External shutters are expensive in this country. Note the small image here, and I'm sorry it's so small, in the middle, of the shutters on the renovated building of AC Architects, where inward opening windows were installed. As the video showed, direct sun can be screened by suspending fabric outside the opening. Heat blocking mesh has been readily available for roof windows for some years. Velux or Facro offer awning blinds, what they call awning blinds, that only transmit between 4% and 14% of the heat, claiming to offer 8 times more effective protection than internal blinds. On the left, a Facro roof light with no awning. So there you are. The next photo is the awning being put in place, and then the awning blind in place with a view out. These awnings stop the heat reaching the window frame and glass, and they still provide light and a view. Maintenance under the wear and tear of wind loading, rain, and grime presents significantly greater problems with external blinds compared to internal ones. So these particular fabric awnings are rolled up into a cassette, a metal cassette at the top of the roof window. And they're extended into place at the beginning of hot weather, and they're left there until autumn. This way they do stay cleaner than if they were there all year, and the blinds are less subject to the wear and tear of winter. External awnings for windows made of this see-through heat blocking material are not readily available in this country yet, although we are continuing to pursue this. Here are some alternative solutions. On the left-hand side, you have fabric shades pinned on a bit the way Anne does, not an awning, but right across the window. This is by a friend of mine, Perry Paticus. But the room will be flooded with yellow color. So you might try white, but in the end, it's still, you can't see out, and there's it blocks the light. On the bottom right, sorry, and then over here on the top right is a sail that's hooked onto the building and onto poles to shade an outdoor area. Bottom right is one of our Open Eco Homes hosts. He's got a bamboo roller screens. And the bottom right photo shows that, I'll make this a little smaller, that lighter weight bamboo screens would even allow you to see out. As a matter of interest, near Cambridge in Saffron Walden, there are porches on 14 passive house units. They're called Wimbish Passive House, and they have fixed sunshade louvers on the front. These work, in fact, they have them in the back as well. These work because the blades let in the low winter sun here, and gradually, as you work through the spring, they block the summer sun up to its maximum angle at the solstice on the 20th and 21st of June. So I tried this out for a Cambridge project. We wanted a garden pergola, a bit like the Wimbish porches, that lets through the winter sun, that's the yellow arrows here, but blocks the summer sun, that's the orange arrows. You can play around with the blade shape, with the spacing, and with the angles. If you added a deciduous climbing plant to this pergola, there would be more shade as the summer progresses, and the blades might even be further spaced apart to let more light through. Finally, here is the Denby Dale Passive House, completed about 2010. you can see upstairs under the roof overhang what they call the solar space on the left. Now here's what the owners said about blinds for this space. The original design outside the solar space was going to be a brise soleil, which they say is a permanently fixed structure for summer shading. And they wanted to add a pergola to provide summer shading downstairs. But we decided against the brise soleil idea because it reminded us of prison bars, and we wouldn't have any control over it. Instead, we had some electronic blinds installed, which work beautifully. You can bring the blinds all the way down, then have them half open so you have lovely dappled light, or all the way up. So there's some possibilities and one house's way of coping. So shading, summary. You need to know where and when the sun comes on your house and evolve a routine, a daily routine for shading the direct sun in a heat wave. 2, many forms of internal shading are readily available and flexible, but they do allow in a lot of heat. External shading more effectively keeps the heat out and can be fixed or adjustable, but it has to be tough enough to cope with wind and weather, and this may mean it is more expensive. Okay, so I think it's time for the Q&A. So I'll hand over to Chris. I'll hand back to Chris, and we can see what questions people have about shading specifically.
Thank you, Margaret. First of all, just mention that at least one of you didn't see the video. David Collett has chatted to say that, and if that's the case for several people, perhaps we'll try and repeat the video at the end of the webinar. But I don't know whether that was an overall problem.
Anybody else? No, I saw it.
Okay. Okay. And just a couple of questions have come in during Margaret's talk. So I'll just call these people just to pose their questions. First of all, Ian Cray, and could you remember to unmute yourself to offer your question? It's quite specific about polycarbonate sheeting for a conservatory roof. Ian Cray, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks very much. The challenge of the heat transmission through a conservatory roof, I guess, is common to many people. I quite like the external shading idea that was on the video. I just wondered, and I've sent a link here, I don't know whether anybody within the group has had any experience of replacing their polycarbonate sheets with products that are becoming more readily available with a, basically it has a finish on the external surface which radiates back the heat away, and then internally it's got a, it says it has an insulation quality, so that in the winter months, you know, in an unheated conservatory where maybe the solar gain isn't, well, it certainly isn't as great as the summer, it provides some insulation qualities. Now, I wondered if anybody, I've attached the link, and I wondered if anybody had any experience of this and what their thoughts were.
Clicking on your link, Ian, it led me to some Gmails, but I couldn't see the polycarbonate.
Okay. Well, that's well, hopefully we can get that up in a minute. Yeah. Okay.
So it sounds a bit. It sounds like is it multi-wall polycarbonate with a kind of reflective surface? Yes,
it's they sell it in various. I'll send it through in a moment, but they offer it. It's the Sunlight product, and it's they offer it in various depths. 25 mil is the minimum, and it's multi-wall, as you say, with two surfaces: an external surface and then an internal surface.
Just one thing to say, I have not used that. I have used polycarbonate in other ways to let the sun through. Engineering and design plastics on the Terry Hinton Road, they're really very knowledgeable about these things, assuming they're still in business. And I haven't used them in the last couple of months, but they have all kinds of materials, and it might be worth checking there, Ian.
That's a good lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. We've got other questions to look at. Next ones have come in from Carrie Court, and two questions, in fact. She lives in West Sussex and was wondering if you can recommend places where she could actually visit Passive House. And a second question is, they have a big conservatory which used to have an internal blind, lasted many years, but were a nightmare to clean. So she is asking, are there any recommendations for internal blinds, which presumably are more easily cleaned?
Does the conservatory have a solid roof or a clear roof?
We are muted, Carrie.
Right, well, assume it's clear, because obviously you can't shade the roof externally, as far as I know, unless you had a pergola or something on top of it, which would be very expensive to design. The best place to go to see a Passive House is Passive House Trust, and I believe they have open days in November and possibly another day in the year as well, and they simply list them all over the country. You can see where they are, and they'll tell you any open days, and people are very, like for Open Eco Homes, people are very generous. You just sign up and you can come and go and look at it. I don't know of any down in West Sussex, I'm afraid. At least I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Sorry, did you say something about the conservatory? You froze up.
Oh, right. I was just wondering, presumably this is a glass roof as well as glass sides. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got to have internal shading for the roof.
Yeah, I mean it's a dwarf wall with tinted glass, and the blinds, after many years got very, very grubby, and and we had to take them down. So now it's just a glass roof.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the only thing is to get a new set of blinds, but they're quite costly.
Mm.
Thank you for the question. Just like to move on to Agnes Toth, asking about window changing to windows that open inwards, and can you recommend any companies doing external shutters and don't cost an arm and a leg? So specifically
Green Building Store does windows that open inwards because they come from Lithuania, and they.
Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a problem. Lots of the companies do windows that are open inwards, but I would only like to proceed with that if we can actually get some shutters that are not costing an arm and a leg, that go externally.
Yeah.
I'm Eastern European,
Yeah.
and I've always been a bit surprised by you. I posted another link as well. If you go down to the bottom of the chat.
Right. For shutters.
Yes, we've got that.
Yes.
Those are the ones that I would love to have. That's what you get everywhere in Eastern Central Europe, and they are absolutely amazing. But there is not a single place I've ever found online where I could order these.
Oh, I wonder whether things are going to change in this country because it is getting hotter. And I mean, I've really been working on Green Building Store on some of the other. The idea of having the same shading as you have on a roof light on a window wouldn't be very difficult to do, but there aren't any of commercially available.
Yes, it's
so I don't know.
It's not difficult. You have it in every single house in Central.
But the windows do open in, and we're not used to that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They do. Yeah.
I'm sure that's why there's no market. If there's no market, then it's going to be very expensive. I don't remember who AC used for the windows in the office. They may have gone to France to get them, but I'm sorry, I can't help on that.
So Chris, I think our time is slipping away a bit.
Yes. Two questions which I think can be dealt with fairly quickly. Mike Martindale, exterior roller shades such as Felix, how do the rollers operate? Are they manually operated? And I think that's a straightforward.
So can I answer that, Margaret? Because we've got some different sorts. So if you can reach the Velux, you know, if it's not out of reach above you, then the simplest kind are easily deployed. You just kind of swing the roof light around, and then you can hook up the blind. When the blind is retracted, it kind of rolls back into a metal cover that keeps it protected. So it's quite easy to do that. If your Velux is high up and out of reach, they used to do a variety where there were strings you could pull that would pull it down and deploy it, but they've stopped doing those. I don't know why. Maybe they were dangerous, and so you can now only buy a electrical version of that, where you have a remote control to put the blinds down.
Thank you, everybody. I think it's time to move on to hear Tom's contributions. The questions we haven't tackled perhaps will be dealt with on a one-to-one basis after the meeting or by email at a later stage. So I'm going to hand back now to Tom to talk about insulation and beyond that.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, and so I hope you can see a slide now about ventilation.
Yep.
And so I think the key, this is about taking control of your home's ventilation in a heat wave. And pretty obviously, when it's hot outside, then you probably need to shut your doors and windows and vents, particularly if they let in hot air. It may be on the shady side of your home, you can get a bit of ventilation, but mainly you want to keep out that boiling hot air through the daytime. And then at night time, when it is cool outside, you really want to open up your home as much as possible, and we'll talk about what is possible later. So open the windows, preferably at the bottom, and other ones at the top of your house. Maybe you can open skylights like this, or maybe even a loft hatch. Whatever can let warm air flow out to the top of your house, and you have a kind of chimney effect, so that through this is a kind of passive ventilation. Because of the hot air rising, it should escape the house, and cooled air can get drawn in if you have windows open at the bottom. Now, or if you only lived on one floor, then you probably want to try and get the air blowing across your house, so opening windows on either side. And that's going to depend a bit on wind direction. And the most difficult property to ventilate really is a single aspect flat. So this is a flat or a building which only has windows on one side. And so you can't kind of get a cross draft in this situation. And unfortunately, a lot of new build flats are poorly designed and in this way and overheat badly. So depending on the sort of window you've got, hopefully you can open it at the bottom and at the top, because that helps with a passive ventilation like this. And here it might really help to have a fan there, because a fan here would be blowing the cool air towards the back of this room along the floor, and the warm air would get pushed out along the top of the room and out of the window, and you get much better cooling through the night if you could do that. Now, I kind of mentioned that it may be difficult for you to open windows on the ground floor at night for security reasons. You might want to look for this logo, look for security by design. And they tend to be windows like this, where these are the kind of secure versions where they have stays that will limit how far open the window will go, so that you can get some ventilation, but without letting burglars in. And the same thing applies to sash windows, where you have, you know, two windows sliding vertically. And there are kind of, you can have screw fittings that will restrict the opening of a sash window so it's still secure. And there's this sort called a vent lock, which is very easy to, if you just press this red bit, that will allow the bottom window to open more and slide past, but it automatically closes when it slides down again. And so with these, might help you get your nighttime cooling, even if security is an issue. But maybe if you live on a main road, maybe you don't want to open windows because you have external noise or because of air pollution. And so I just want to run another poll now. And we're going to go for poll 2. So I think you've now got a poll open. So this is about night ventilation. Can you ventilate your home at night? Can you see that? So fill it in if you can in the next half minute or so, and we'll see what kind of problems people have. So I'm going to close it soon. Most people have answered.
Interesting.
Okay, so here, I'm just sharing the results. So actually, yes, I could get a good airflow, good flow of cooling air. Was the biggest. So that okay, hopefully will help you think through what it would take to make that real. So you could answer at the bottom. But some people have problems with insecure windows or air pollution, or another problem there for a couple of people. All right. So back to, are you seeing the PowerPoint now? Chris, yes. Can you see the PowerPoint?
I can't.
Yes, I can.
Oh, yeah.
I can.
I can see. I have the poll as well.
Okay. You may have to close.
I've just minimized it. I've minimized it now.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm on to the next slide now. I'm going to talk a bit about insulation. So I've got a thermal image here on the right of, this is a slate roof in a heat wave, and this temperature here, it's showing the surface of this roof is at 74 degrees. So really hot, you know, much too hot to put your finger on. And so you can imagine if this roof is not insulated underneath, as was the case with our neighbour's loft here, there's enormous heat radiating down into the loft space from these extremely hot tiles. And most of that heat will be radiating down. This multi-foil insulation is particularly effective at blocking radiant heat with multiple reflective layers. But, and indeed our neighbour has now sorted this out, and their loft space is much better insulated from below as well. And of course, you need to think about insulating your hot pipes, your hot tank, if you have one, so that they're not bringing accidental heating into your home in a heat wave. And all of these kinds of insulation will be really good to have in winter as well. So Margaret just mentioned about thermal mass. So where you've got dense materials like brick or stone or concrete, and the effect they have is to steady the temperature. And so I'm just going to talk about that in relation to solid wall insulation. And so if you've got a solid brick wall like this one, so there's not a cavity in the middle, as in more modern homes, sort of 1930s and previously, or older homes like mine, are solid brick walls, not well insulated. But in fact, we're getting planning permission to put on external insulation like this, where you've got often a foam or other insulation attached to the wall, maybe rendering on the outside. And the big advantage of this is you've got a lot of thermal mass inside the insulation. You've got literally tons of brick in this wall, and they will help steady the temperature of a room inside. And this is a real benefit. So the peak temperature in the daytime will be reduced. And if by nighttime cooling, you can cool down this brick wall, then that's going to be a real benefit, keeping the room inside cool the following day. And compare that with internal insulation, which you may have to use sometimes if your home's in a conservation area or something. Then here you've got the insulation on the inside, probably plasterboard. And so as you can see, the thermal mass of the wall is not going to help in the room here. And this room will be quicker to heat up, also quicker to cool down, but it will tend to suffer from higher uncomfortable peak temperatures. If you've got a solid floor underneath, then having tiles on that floor, for example, will help you reap the benefit of the thermal mass of the solid floor. So that would help keep the room at a steady temperature. And if you put carpet or cork or some insulating material on top of the floor, then that's going to reduce the benefits of the floor's thermal mass. External surfaces, we talked a bit about having, somebody was asking about reflective paint. And here's an example, another thermal image where you will see that, that this spot here is at 48.3 degrees centigrade. So the wall is quite hot in the heat wave. In the shade of this tree, it's much less at 33 degrees C. But the other half of this terraced house, same construction, is 7.5 degrees cooler on the surface. Big difference. And the reason you can see now is that the right-hand half of this house, the right-hand half is white painted. And so that really has had a significant effect in keeping down the surface temperature. So the more we could have white homes and white roofs, that would be a benefit. So accidental heating. And so somebody's clanking in the background. Can you have a look? Somebody needs muting. Okay, so here's a diagram. The numbers 4 are showing in a diagram causes of accidental heating. So for example, your laptop or maybe your TV, your electronics are going to heat up your home. And so think about keeping them switched off when you're not using them. Same with your cooking. that will heat up your home, especially if you're using the oven a long while. Maybe it will help if you have an extractor fan, to put that on while you're cooking, so that the warm air produced gets sucked out of the house. Or if you've got a boiler or a hot water tank, those are all things that may be accidentally heating your home. I don't know if you can spot any other causes of accidental heat. It's hard to all shout in at the moment. The lighting, of course, can be a reason, especially if you have inefficient bulbs. LEDs don't give off much heat. People themselves give off significant heat. And of course, there's the hot pipe work that may be a problem. My mother-in-law used to live near here in sheltered accommodation, and her flat got really hot in the summer, not so much because of sunlight. Here is a thermal image of there was a hot pipe under her floor. The surface of her floor is at 36 degrees here, and so it was really overheating her room. And it turned out, when we complained about this, it was fixable. There was a valve controlling this hot water that was jammed, stuck on, and when they sorted that out, this pipe was no longer hot. So something about efficient appliances and tech. You probably, if you're choosing a new appliance, washing machine, TV, whatever, you can look at the energy labels, because the more efficient it is, like this A++, plus, they have 3 pluses maximum now, down to G as the worst. That will help you choose something that won't give off so much accidental heat. There's a good website called Sustit, sustit.net. All of these links will be available to you afterwards, by the way. We'll circulate PDFs of these that you'll be able to click on. So they have a library of about 30,000 appliances where you can look up appliances that you can look up. And then I was saying this obvious message here: switch them off if you're not using them. And okay, and so here's my final slide about personal cooling. So keeping yourself cool, obviously with drinks, maybe with cool showers, fans, spraying yourself with water, those will all help. And you really probably need to think about keeping hydrated, avoiding dehydration. Loose, light clothes will help. I've heard this tip recently, and I've got a hot water bottle in my freezer, but I haven't tried it out in bed yet. But I'm going to. I think in a heat wave, it could be quite handy to keep cool at night, and I know that can be a real problem. Maybe if you can consider, is there a cooler room you could sleep at night? Some people find it cooler to sleep in their living room rather than their bedroom when there's a heat wave. And so these are all serious issues that can have severe health effects. This is the link to an NHS site about heat exhaustion and heat stroke. In the 2003 heat wave in Europe and Britain, they think there were 2,000 excess deaths in Britain caused by the heat wave, and 35,000 in Europe altogether. So, you know, we talk about it being uncomfortable, but it might be more serious still. And it may be good to avoid going out or avoiding exertion in the middle of the day. And maybe you have neighbours who you could help if they're old or young or vulnerable. Maybe you can share some of this advice or help them stay cool in a heat wave. And so we're going to have another questions session now. I'm going to stop this share. Have you got, Chris, are you going to call out some questions?
Certainly am, yes. Most of the questions which have come in while you've been talking, Tom, are to do with roof insulations and roof treatments and so on, and walls. Just go through those. I think they're fairly straightforward. First one's from Sarah, and I'll just read it out. If we don't have a window in the roof, should we keep the hatch closed? So that's presumably relating to the insulation of the roof against heat.
And so it depends a bit what state your loft is in, but most lofts should be quite well ventilated by having vents under the eaves. And so it depends a bit, but if your loft is cool at night, if it's well ventilated, then opening the loft hatch may be a way for the rest of your home to lose heat. But obviously if it's boiling hot up there, then it's probably best to keep the loft hatch shut. But hopefully you have some other window at or near the top of your house, or a skylight that you can open to help nighttime cooling.
One thing could be done is to insulate the loft hatch, which is good in the winter. Also would be useful in the summer to keep that heat from radiating down. If you can possibly get a roof light up there, open the hatch and open the roof light, and you can use the chimney effect. And that really night cooling, particularly in an old heavy masonry house, is brilliant in a heat wave.
Got a couple of other questions relating to roofs and roof spaces. Mike Martindale wants to know whether the multi-layer foil insulation should be inside under the slope of the roof or laid flat on the bottom of the roof space.
Well, so that's going to depend a lot on what you use this space for under the sloping roof. So for example, we've had a loft extension done, I guess 5 years ago, where indeed there is a sloping roof, and it's a room up there now. And so we do have both Celotex insulation between the rafters, but and then a layer of this multifoil, which I think is quite a good combination, and certainly seems to keep that room from overheating.
Be advised that building regs now.
Roof at all.
Say again?
We don't use the roof at all. It's just a space up there.
So an empty loft space. So it might, you could consider laying a reflective material then at the bottom of your loft, and that might reduce the heat getting radiated down into the rest of the house.
Wouldn't it not be more effective up near the slate, stop it getting in the roof in the first place?
Yes, if you can get it up there, I think that is ideal. And look, go on. There are quite complicated instructions about how you fit multifoil insulations. The one I showed was a type called Tri-ISO, and but they're just fitted with battens, and yep, that could be really useful. But you've got to make sure that the roof is still properly ventilated.
Yes, you have to have a vent gap over it, so presumably you would tack it to the underside of the rafters. That would be the simplest. Pushing insulation right up into between the rafters, you're going to compromise the ventilation of the roof, and you could get condensation in there.
Another roof question which came in, and that may have been covered in what you just said. Stuart Charnell, if they have a tile roof with felt, is there insulation they can fit?
Again, it depends on the headroom you want and what you're doing up there. Is it a room or just a storage space? If it's like Mike's, it's just a storage space, you could tack it under the bottom of the rafters or lay it on the floor. But you need to make sure you've got that air gap, at least 2-inch, 50-millimeter air gap above insulation. And now they're saying building control wants to know what you're doing for roof insulation. They're very concerned about this, and you can get help from them, but you can also be expected to be inspected if you are doing the work yourself.
Time is running on, but we'll try and get one or two more questions in. Agnes Toth asks, the front of their house is covered in timber cladding, painted in black. Would it make a big difference if it was painted white?
Probably, I think, yes.
If it's overheating, it's worth a try.
Black's the worst colour in this respect, so if it's going to look okay as well, that could make quite a benefit.
Good. And then just trying to pick up any more questions. Yes, so this is about Velux blinds again. Sue Janok asked, can you recommend an affordable Velux blind?
So if you've got a Velux window, then their website will, well, you go onto their website and check your exact type of Velux. They all have a little label in them with a type number, and you can find out if they do awning blinds that fit your window, and you can buy the awning blinds, and it's fairly simple to fit them yourself as a retrofit. I don't know if they're going to be more expensive than you want. I think the Vecro are cheaper, aren't they, Margaret?
Vecro are a bit more expensive. They're meant to be more passive houses use Vecro. We just specify some. I think they're on their own. Well, the part of the cost of the window with the blind was about £200, I think it was. They're quite expensive, a nice set of equipment. I'm not absolutely certain, but the whole thing can be retrofitted, and they aren't that expensive if you've already got the window.
Thank you. And one final question. David Collett asks, does anyone have any tips for the best thermal mass tiles for ground floor of a house?
Floor tiles?
Floor tiles, thermal mass tiles for ground floor of a house, yes.
Ceramic, porcelain?
Yes, so something that is heavy and conductive, but probably the weight will help.
You can get recyclable tiles made of recyclable material. That's a good thing. It's always better than flooring, which is an insulant. The tiles feel really cold, and that keeps the place cool. I don't know any particular. Quarry tiles are thicker. I can't really say.
Good. Well, that exhausts our questions. There are a few more still pending from Margaret's talk, and I suggest that we could perhaps take those after Tom has wound up the webinar, for those who would like to stay and just see if you can give answers to those. And one or two requests to see the video of the window shade again, which we can do.
Okay. Shall I show you what's a bit about what's coming up? I'm doing another screen share, I hope.
Yes.
You may have heard that next Tuesday, where Mark Brinkley, this guy here, is giving an online tour of his his self-build house. This is a new house built on a narrow site in Sedgwick Street, and it's just fascinating. Mark is a bit of a self-build guru. He has written the House Builder's Bible, which is the biggest selling book of that sort in the UK. And he's got several A couple of features to mention here that are relevant to summer overheating: low G glass, which reflects the heat a bit, and his mechanical ventilation with heat recovery has a summer bypass. That's features to look out for that will help an MVHR keep you cool in winter. But anyway, that's going to be a great, an interesting event, and he's got lots of fantastic photos and bits of video to show us. And then in September, October, we'll be doing some more online tours, a bit like Mark is doing on Tuesday. Keep an eye out for those. So we're going to try and feature a whole range of different houses, both new build and retrofit of homes of various eras. And we're planning to do some more webinars soon. Have one about insulation coming up and one about heat pumps. And you've seen me showing you thermal imaging, thermal images. So normally in the autumn, we offer free thermal imaging training to show you how to use Cambridge carbon footprints to thermal imaging cameras and interpret their images. And we hope to be able to loan you the cameras. That's what we normally do. But the question marks here are, we have to wait and see if it's going to be safe to have face-to-face training sessions and to work out how we're going to handle cameras. But anyway, we'll see what happens by the autumn. Look out for that. Here are a couple of resources you might like to look at. These links will be in fact, already in chat. There are both Margaret and my slides as PDFs, and you can go and open those and click on these links. So this Staying Cool in a Heat Wave is an online resource that covers similar ground to what we've done, but with quite a few more links. And Transition Cambridge have a link about, there's a link about how to keep cool in the summer. So, although we've been talking about all the problems, I hope you can enjoy the hot weather. And as a bit of feedback to help us do this better every time, please could you write in chat something good about this evening's session and something we could improve. That would really help us. If you could just take a minute, just write in chat something good and something we could improve. And okay, this is all free, but we really appreciate donations to Cambridge Carbon Footprint, the charity behind this. There is a link which I shall drop into chat in a minute. But do go and make us a donation if you can. That just helps us keep this all running. So thanks very much for taking part. Here is email addresses for Margaret and me. And so this is, we're now at the end of the kind of official session. I'm sorry if we have overrun 7 minutes, but if you want to stay around and ask any more questions, we'll stay around a little longer so that you can ask more. Thanks a lot.
A few questions outstanding from Margaret's presentation, which if you've got a moment to just look at them. One of them is particularly interesting, I think.
Okay, sorry, I'm not seeing it at the moment. I haven't got chat open and I can't find where it is, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Oh, I see, there it is. Okay, good.
External roller blinds, right.
So one very vital question for Cambridge residents. Are there any considerations with Cambridge Planning Department and external shutters? That was raised by Vicky Meadows.
Well, Vicky, yes, particularly if you live in a conservation area, and particularly if it's at the front of your home, is the answer. I'm not quite sure whether this would matter if you lived outside a conservation area. Do you know, Margaret?
No, not off the top of my head, I'm afraid. If you're not in a conservation area at the back of your house, I think you'd be all right. But you always need to just double check with your local, with the planning department.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are in a conservation area and it's the house. So I just need to check with the planning department.
I know for the AC office, obviously, it was all renovated and the whole thing was a planning permission, so that the shutters went along with that. Just to add shutters, I would think you just need to get in touch with the, there's a duty planner who can point you in the right direction. Just you have to phone up and.
If I could interject here, it's Ian. In terms of getting direction on the conservation matters, sorry, Vicky, you're in Cambridge itself?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, the two offices to go directly to Christian Brady.
Right.
Or Susan Smith.
Right, let me write that down. Thank you.
They often the planners will then pass it on to relevant people. If you go direct, you might get a more speedy response.
Okay. What was the second name? Susan
Smith.
Smith, right.
And they it's susan.smith@cambridge.gov.uk.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Other question from Sylvia Giannini. Is she still at the forum here? The question is, are there external blinds that isolate from cold too during winter?
This is interesting. Someone asked about that because in Germany, and I believe in other countries in Europe, they have very neat external blinds that have a small amount of insulation in them, and you pull them down on the outside, a bit like a roller shutter. And we found some of these at roma.eu, wasn't it, Chris? We'll try and add an answer that in the chat that we send out. Again, I don't think they're common at all in this country, but that website is in English, and you could at least find out if there's any supplier in Britain and anybody who would install them for you.
I think they do have distributors in this country.
I'm sorry?
I think they do have distributors in this country, according to their website.
Other than that, I don't know of anything except purpose-designed, say, shutters that were made of insulating material. Yes, and Tom, do you know?
No, I haven't experienced the insulating external ones.
They're very common in Germany. They just sort of close down the house at night, a bit like shutters, really, but they're roller shutters.
Good, thank you. And one last question. Sue Januk would like to know the material for the awning, which the video showed.
Hi, Sue. And so we bought it from a company called Point North, and I'll share a file through chat that we have a PDF of of those DIY awnings, and the reflective material has a link in there. I'm putting it up now.
Tom, you thought that Point North would also have external awning fabric, which if you have a way of making eyelets, you can simply hang a panel on your windows. and I've got samples of those now. The shading factor is about 45 to 50%, not 86 to 91, but it's certainly something, and they're available in this country. So if you're handy with the sewing machine, you could do that. Did you put eyelets into yours, Tom?
No, we sewed on loops.
Loops, yeah.
That attached to the wall and to the guys.
Okay, and just takes us to a rerun of the video. One or two requests to see that again. So
I actually sent in questions, yeah. But I'm sorry, but to interrupt you, but I think I sent them to somebody called Carrie by mistake. I don't know why they keep on sending them to not to everyone. So perhaps you're not picking them up.
I have one from you that says BRE Village has all sorts of solutions, so some of them are getting through.
Okay, well that one I managed to send, but I've been sending them to all sorts of people by mistake. But what I just wanted to say is that my whole house, bar the underneath a southern overhang and bar a northern thing, which are white render, is core 10, including the roof. So I imagine that is why I have this sort of appalling problem with heat. But not only that, there is actually there are very high ceilings, but there's no escape through the ceilings for the heat. I mean, I must admit, when we were building the house, I was, because I'm severely arthritic, I was obsessed by being warm enough. I got it totally wrong, because that's fine. I'm warm enough in this house, but
what are your walls? What are your walls made of?
They're I think you mentioned it. It's that really thick, really super thick insulation that has sort of silver either side, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's timber frame, or it's just steel frame and then insulation?
It's primarily timber frame, but there is a sort of a big steel superstructure.
Is there any masonry?
No masonry, no.
Yeah. Well, you can still chill as a solid floors.
No, they're not. They're those sort of beams that go across, and they put them very, very
concrete, yeah, beam and pot.
Yeah, it's not concrete. Yeah. No, it's beam, and then with just that sort of probably with sterling board or something on top. I don't know.
Yeah. So you haven't got much thermal mass. If you can chill at night, but it won't hold it very long if you haven't got thermal mass. If you've got metal, it's going to conduct heat in and out.
Okay. Because I mean, they said they over-insulated the house. They tried to build it to passive house standards, but what they've done is they haven't put in any escape for the heat. And then we have we're under code 6, so we're everything's AAA. The boiler is super duper and everything else. But it was quite interesting what you were putting about the insulation around pipes and everything, because I do that. But the recurved pipes, and actually insulating those is really difficult. So
yes,
what do you tape them or something to tape the insulation in place?
Yes,
segment it.
Yes. I think you may have to make cuts in the insulation so it will follow the curve.
No, we've made cuts, but then there are always gaps.
Well, tape those up, I think. Yes.
It is tape them up, okay. And then if I haven't got any escape through the roof, what might be happening?
Well,
escape. I mean, core 10 roof, core 10, the whole. It was a young architect. It was the first building he'd ever done, and
So I'd be asking, is there any way to make an opening in the roof?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if with a roof light, you could get a fair amount of ventilation through there.
Yes.
You have no roof light?
No.
No. Yeah.
No, and I mean, you know, it's core 10. It's solid sheets of core 10. It's you know, it would be major. I mean, both my husband and we have 2 rooms which we have to use air conditioning because it's just it goes up to 40 degrees upstairs.
Yeah,
that's terrible. So Francis, I think people wanted to watch this awning video again.
Oh yeah, okay.
Are we ready to show it, Chris?
I think so, yes.
So can I introduce it? So because this video is showing my wife Anne with these awnings that we made, or some of them, and it's an extremely DIY but very effective little process, and let's hope you can see it clearly this time.
My office faces south, so when it's forecast to be hot, I like to put up an awning that I made in 2010 to shade the window. I lean out and hook some elastic loops at the top over hooks on the wall. Then 2 lengths of tube hold it out the bottom edge. I tension it all up with guy ropes, after more hooks are screwed into the outside wall at the bottom. It works very well, and the shade keeps the room cool. We have a larger awning downstairs, and this one is held out with guys to the garden fence. My office faces south, so when it's forecast to be hot, I made 2010 to shade the window. I lean out and look for the landscape.
Sorry about this.
You got too much of a good thing.
An encore.
Okay. One query that has come up, several people have mentioned they can't find the links to the presentations on the chat stream.
Okay.
Email saying that they're right at the very beginning, but if anybody can't find them, that's where to look them at the beginning of the chat thread.
Yes, and you can click on them and they will they'll download. And then near the end, I've added a PDF that describes the awnings and gives links for those. I'll circulate everyone with an email tomorrow.
If you just enter a chat, it goes to the person who's just sent the chat. There's a drop down there where you can have everyone, and then you can it lists every single person on the who's currently logged in. So if you do just Tom or something, it will be privately. But if you drop down the menu, you can get everyone.
And so I have now managed to share the DIY awning PDF with everyone near the end there.
Could I ask whether Malcolm Adams has now found the presentation links at the top of the chat stream? Malcolm Adams, could you unmute? No, still muted.
He's still muted. I can unmute him. No, I can't.
No.
No.
Yeah, I looked on the chat stream and they don't show up on mine, so I think they must, maybe I joined after they were posted.
Oh, that could be. So I will circulate everyone with links to those in the morning.
And I think we thought we would make a copy of the chat, Chris.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. And I think people see that John Sandbeck says he has got Vine or Veritex blinds.
Okay, good.
Shading. Those are beautiful things, which I looked at and didn't even dare ask the price. It's supposed to block 86%. That's the fabric that we really want. Tom's Points North isn't as high blockage of heat. Supply and Fix is a company called Netmore Blinds, Clacton. Yes. Oh, good. That's excellent. Thank you. That's useful.
I think that's all the points I've picked up, and perhaps we ought to wind up.
I think it's about time. You can time to find ourselves some refreshment. I've got a glass of water. So thanks for participating. Any final things people want to add? Great. Well, I hope you enjoy the next.
No, it's very interesting to hear from people what their problems are. I'd just like to say that.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to close the meeting again. Thanks very much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye for now.